The desperate signal. The last hope of Valorum. The waters of Valorum Prime had always been crystal clear, reflecting the light of their twin suns in shimmering patterns that danced across the ocean floor. But today those waters ran dark with ash and debris. Counselor Mireth floated in the central command sphere, her bioluminescent skin flickering with distress as she watched her civilization crumble on the holographic displays surrounding her. The Void Wraiths had come without warning, as they always did. Their black ships materialized from nowhere, appearing like tears in the fabric of space itself. They didn't communicate. They didn't negotiate. They simply consumed everything in their path, stripping worlds of all resources before moving on to their next victim. Mireth's people, the Valorum, had been explorers and artists for thousands of years. They built cities beneath the waves, composed symphonies using bioluminescence, and studied the mysteries of deep space with curiosity rather than fear. They had no weapons worth mentioning, no military doctrine, no concept of total war. Why would they? In all their travels, they'd never encountered a species that wanted to destroy rather than understand. Until now. 3 of their 7 colony worlds had already fallen silent. The Void Wraith stripped them completely, leaving nothing but barren rocks floating in space. Valorum Prime would be next. Their defensive satellites, designed to deflect asteroids and space debris, might as well have been toys against the Wraith vessels. A gamble. Across the stars, Marath turned to her chief scientist, an elderly Valorum named Teclon, whose skin had faded to pale silver with age. "The quantum beacon is ready?" she asked, her voice carrying through the water in melodic tones that her translator converted to standard galactic speech. Teclon's fins drooped with resignation. "Yes, Counselor. But I must repeat my concerns. We have no idea what exists in that region of space. The beacon will broadcast our location and our desperation to whatever species might be listening. We could be inviting something worse than the Wraiths." Mireth looked at the tactical display showing the Wraith fleet gathering at the edge of their system. 17 massive vessels, each one capable of cracking a planet's crust. They would arrive in 4 days. 4 days until extinction. What could be worse than this? She asked quietly. Teclon had no answer. The quantum beacon activated with a pulse of energy that rippled through subspace, carrying the Valorum's plea across unfathomable distances. The message was simple and desperate. It contained their coordinates, a basic explanation of their situation, and a request for any kind of help. They promised anything in return: technology, resources, servitude if necessary, anything except extinction. The message traveled through folded space, reaching into unexplored regions where the Valorum had never ventured. It passed through dark nebulas and around collapsed stars, searching for any civilization that might hear and might care. And then, in a small corner of space the Valorum had marked as uninhabited, something heard. On a blue and green world orbiting a yellow star, the message reached military satellites that had been watching the void for exactly this kind of signal. Earth's Answer Commander, Sarah. Chen had been reviewing supply reports in her office at the United Earth Space Command headquarters when the alert came through. At first she thought it was another drill. UESC ran constant simulations, preparing for the day when humanity might finally encounter other intelligent life. But the readings were wrong for a drill. The quantum signature was real, and the encoding was completely alien. "Commander, you need to see this," her communications officer, Lieutenant James Park, said over the intercom. His voice carried an edge of excitement and fear. "We've got a first contact situation, and it's not friendly." Sarah reached the command center in less than 2 minutes. The main display showed the decoded message, and her blood ran cold as she read it. An alien civilization was facing extinction. They were 4 days from annihilation by an enemy they couldn't fight, and they'd sent their distress call blindly into space, hoping anyone would answer. "How far?" Sarah asked. Lieutenant Park pulled up the calculations. "Approximately 47 light-years. In the Cetus constellation from our perspective. We've never sent probes that far, never detected any signs of civilization in that region." Sarah studied the message again. The Valorum had included data about themselves, peaceful aquatic beings who'd never developed weapons of war. The images showed beautiful underwater cities and a culture that valued art and knowledge above all else. They reminded her of how Earth might have been if humans had evolved without predators, without the constant struggle that had defined humanity's rise. But humans hadn't been that lucky. Earth was a death world by galactic standards, though the Valorum didn't know that yet. Heavy gravity, violent weather, aggressive predators, and diseases that evolved as fast as their hosts. Humanity had climbed to the top of the food chain through stubbornness, intelligence, and an absolute refusal to give up no matter how bad things got. The fleet assembled. Sarah made her decision in less than 30 seconds. She reached for her communication panel and entered the emergency code that would connect her directly to the Secretary General. "Sir, we have a situation," she began. 40 minutes later, the order came down from the top. Earth would respond. Humanity had spent the last century building ships for a war they hoped would never come, preparing for the day when something hostile might find them. Now they had a chance to use that fleet for something other than defense. They could save an entire civilization. The assembly happened faster than anyone thought possible. Shipyards across Earth's orbit went into emergency production mode. Crews that had been training in simulators suddenly found themselves assigned to real missions. Supplies that had been stockpiled for decades were loaded onto vessels built for speed and firepower. Commander Sarah Chen received her orders along with a promotion. She would lead the response fleet as Admiral Chen, commanding a task force of 32 warships. Each vessel represented humanity's best military technology, built with one purpose in mind: to protect Earth from anything the universe might throw at it. The flagship, the UES Indomitable, was a heavy cruiser spanning 800 meters from bow to stern. Its hull was composed of composite armor, designed to withstand impacts from relativistic projectiles. Its weapons included railguns that could accelerate projectiles to a significant fraction of light speed, missile batteries with both nuclear and kinetic warheads, and point defense systems that could track thousands of targets simultaneously. But the Indomitable's real advantage was its crew. 2,000 men and women who'd trained for years in Earth's harsh environment, who'd learned to think tactically and adapt quickly. They came from every nation on Earth, united by a single goal: protect humanity and anyone who asked for their help. Journey to the unknown. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as her fleet prepared for departure. Around her, officers worked at their stations with calm efficiency. These weren't glory seekers or adventurers. They were professionals who understood the weight of what they were about to do. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Lieutenant Park reported. He'd been promoted to her executive officer for this mission. "Fleet formation is locked. Faster than light drives are charging." Sarah took a breath. Humanity was about to announce itself to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible, not with a message of peace or a diplomatic mission, but with a battle fleet rushing to defend complete strangers. "Send a message to Valorum Prime," Sarah ordered. "Let them know help is coming." The communications specialist, Ensign Maria Rodriguez, worked her console. "Admiral, we don't have their exact frequencies or translation protocols yet. The message might not be clear." "Send it anyway," Sarah said. "Even if they can't understand the words, they'll detect the transmission. They'll know someone heard them." The message went out, a simple declaration in multiple formats. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Command. We received your distress call. Hold on. We're coming." On Valorum Prime, 3 days after sending their desperate plea into the void, Counselor Mirith was coordinating the final evacuation efforts when her communications officer shouted in surprise, "Counselor, we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from the direction where we sent the beacon." Mirith rushed to the display. The message was partially garbled, the alien technology using different encoding than anything the Valorum had encountered. But the meaning came through clearly enough. Someone had heard. Someone was coming. "Can you determine how far away they are?" Mirith asked, her bioluminescence pulsing with hope for the first time in days. The communications officer worked frantically. "The signal propagation suggests they're approximately 47 light-years from our position. At conventional speeds, it would take them decades to reach us. But, Counselor, the quantum signature suggests they have faster-than-light capability." Teclon floated closer, his expression skeptical. "Even with FTL, they can't possibly arrive before the Wraiths. We have less than a day remaining." But Mirith was reading the technical data embedded in the transmission. The aliens, these humans, had included basic specifications of their ships. The numbers made no sense. The power output readings had to be wrong. No civilization would build ships that generated that much energy. The engines alone would tear the vessels apart. First contact protocol. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Valorum system, exactly 18 hours after departing Earth. The transition was violent by the standards of most spacefaring species. Human FTL technology prioritized speed over comfort, subjecting crews to forces that would incapacitate most aliens. But humans could handle it. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Sarah immediately called for a tactical assessment. Scan the system, find the Valorum homeworld, and locate the hostile fleet. The sensor returns came back within seconds. Admiral, I have multiple contacts, Lieutenant Park reported. Valorum Prime is the third planet. Heavy water composition, suitable for aquatic life. I'm also detecting 17 large vessels in a holding position near the outer system. Configuration unknown, but they match the description of the Void Wraith ships from the distress call. Sarah studied the tactical display. The Wraith vessels were massive, each one larger than her entire task force combined. But size wasn't everything. Time until they reached the planet? She asked. At their current speed, approximately 6 hours. Admiral, we're also being hailed by the planet. I think it's the Valorum. Sarah nodded. Put them through. And someone get our xenolinguistics team to help with translation. The holographic display flickered, then resolved into an image that made several bridge officers gasp. The alien was beautiful in an otherworldly way, with translucent skin that glowed with soft blue light, large eyes adapted for underwater vision, and graceful fins instead of limbs. She floated in what appeared to be a water-filled chamber. I am Counselor Mireth of Valorum Prime, the alien said through their translator. Her voice had a musical quality even through the machine. You came. You actually came. We didn't think anyone would hear us in time. Sarah stepped forward so the Valorum could see her clearly. She knew her appearance would be shocking to a species that had never encountered predators. Forward-facing eyes, visible teeth, a body built for a high-gravity environment. Everything about humans screamed dangerous to prey species. Counselor Mireth, Sarah said carefully, trying to keep her voice gentle. I'm Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Command. We received your distress call and came as fast as we could. We're here to help. Mireth's bioluminescence pulsed with emotion that Sarah couldn't quite read. Relief? Fear? Both? You came so far. 47 light years in less than a day. How is that possible? We'll have time for explanations later, Sarah said. Right now I need to know everything about these Void Wraiths, their capabilities, their tactics, anything that might help us fight them. Mireth's glow dimmed. Fight them? Admiral, there are 17 of their capital ships. Each one has already destroyed multiple worlds. They have weapons that can crack planets. And you brought only 32 ships. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Counselor, I need you to trust me. Humans come from a world that's been trying to kill us since we first evolved. We've gotten very good at surviving impossible situations. Now tell me about the Wraiths. Understanding the enemy over the next hour, Sarah's tactical team gathered everything the Valorum knew about their enemy. The Void Wraiths were an enigma to most of the galaxy. They appeared without warning, consumed everything of value, and vanished just as mysteriously. They never communicated, never showed mercy, and never left survivors. Their ships were biological in nature, grown rather than built, with hulls that could repair themselves and weapons that fired concentrated dark energy. The Valorum had tried to fight them at first. Their defense fleet, designed for police work and asteroid defense, lasted approximately 12 minutes against a single Wraith vessel. After that, the Valorum had focused on evacuation and survival. Sarah listened carefully, asking pointed questions about the Wraith's tactics and capabilities. Her officers took detailed notes, already formulating strategies. They always attack in waves, Mireth explained. First, they send smaller attack craft to overwhelm defensive positions. Then the capital ships move in to begin harvesting operations. They strip everything: minerals, water, organic material, even the atmosphere. Lieutenant Park leaned close to Sarah. Admiral, this is going to be difficult. Our weapons are designed for human-scale conflicts. We've never fought anything with this level of biological technology. Sarah nodded but wasn't concerned. Every enemy has weaknesses. We just need to find them. She turned back to Mireth. Counselor, I need you to evacuate all non-essential personnel from the orbital platforms. Get your people to the shelters on the planet's surface. What's about to happen is going to be violent. Mireth's bioluminescence flickered with worry. Admiral Chen, I must ask, can you really defeat them? 17 capital ships against your 32 vessels? The mathematics seems impossible. Sarah's expression hardened. She thought about Earth, about the billions of people watching this mission from home. She thought about what it meant to be human. To come from a world where survival was never guaranteed and death was always one mistake away. "Counselor," Sarah said quietly, "humans learned a long time ago that mathematics doesn't always tell the whole story. Sometimes the will to survive matters more than numbers. Sometimes being too stubborn to give up is enough." She gestured to her crew working efficiently around her. "We didn't come 47 light years to watch you die. We came to fight. And when humans fight, we don't do it halfway." Preparation for battle. The human fleet moved into defensive positions around Valorum Prime. Sarah had her ships spread out in a formation that seemed random to the watching Valorum, but followed precise tactical calculations. Each vessel had specific firing coordinates and fallback positions. They'd practiced these maneuvers thousands of times in simulation. Now they'd find out if training matched reality. In the engine room of the Indomitable, Chief Engineer Michael Torres was running final checks on the ship's systems. The faster-than-light journey had pushed their engines hard, but everything was performing within acceptable parameters. That was the beauty of human engineering. They built things tough enough to handle punishment. "Admiral, the Wraith fleet is accelerating," Lieutenant Park reported. "They've detected our presence and are moving to engage. Time to contact. 2 hours." Sarah activated the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. In 2 hours, we're going to face an enemy that's destroyed multiple civilizations. They think we're just another obstacle to brush aside. They don't know about Earth, they don't know about humanity. They don't know what it means to fight someone who absolutely refuses to lose." She paused, looking at the faces of her bridge crew, young and old, experienced veterans and fresh academy graduates, all of them ready to do their duty. "Our mission is simple," Sarah continued. "Protect Valorum Prime and eliminate the Wraith threat. We have superior technology, superior training, and something the Wraiths don't have. We know exactly what we're fighting for." These people sent a distress call into the darkness, hoping someone good would answer. "Well, they got us. Let's show them what humanity can do. All ships, Battle Protocol 7. Prepare for combat." Across the fleet, weapon systems powered up. Railguns calibrated their targeting. Missile tubes loaded their payloads. Point defense networks ran final diagnostics. Fighter craft prepared for launch, and 2,000 humans got ready to announce their species to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. By standing between predators and their prey and refusing to move, the Void Wraiths were coming. They expected easy prey, a quick harvest, and another world added to their collection. Instead, they were about to encounter something they'd never faced before: humanity at war, and that made all the difference. When Earth answers, the Void arrives. The Void Wraith fleet emerged from the darkness like a nightmare made real. 17 massive vessels, each one stretching over 3 kilometers in length, their biological hulls pulsing with dark energy that seemed to absorb light itself. They moved with predatory grace, organic engines propelling them forward in perfect formation. On Valorum Prime, millions of civilians huddled in underwater shelters, watching their screens as the alien death fleet approached. They'd seen this before, watched other worlds fall to these monsters. Now it was their turn. Except this time, something stood between them and extinction. 32 human warships holding position in a defensive sphere around their planet. Counselor Mirath watched from her command center, her bioluminescence flickering with anxiety. The human ships looked so small compared to the Wraith vessels, fragile metal constructs against biological juggernauts that had conquered dozens of worlds. She wanted to believe in Admiral Chen's confidence, but the numbers were simply too overwhelming. "The Wraiths are launching attack craft," her sensor operator announced. "Thousands of them, just like before." On the Indomitable's bridge, Lieutenant Park confirmed the same readings. "Admiral, I count approximately 15,000 small attack craft deploying from the capital ships. They're forming up for a swarm assault." Sarah watched the tactical display with cold calculation. The Wraith strategy was simple and effective. Overwhelmed defenses with sheer numbers while the capital ships moved in for the kill. It had worked against every species they'd encountered. But those species hadn't been human. "All ships hold position," Sarah ordered. "Let them come to us. Point defense to automatic targeting. Fire when they enter range." The Wraith attack swarm accelerated toward the human fleet like a living tide. Each craft was a biological weapon, bred specifically for space combat. They carried no pilots, just organic computing systems that controlled their movements and weapons. They'd been engineered to be fast, aggressive, and expendable. Hell's Gates. Open, the human point defense systems activated when the swarm reached the designated range. What happened next would be analyzed by military historians for generations. Every ship in the human fleet was equipped with automated defense turrets that used advanced targeting computers. These systems could track hundreds of targets simultaneously, calculate trajectories in microseconds, and fire with perfect accuracy. The technology came from centuries of dealing with Earth's debris problem, learning to shoot down meteors and space junk that threatened satellites and stations. Against living targets that moved predictably, it was devastating. Space lit up with tracer fire as thousands of point defense weapons opened fire simultaneously. The computers didn't need to aim manually. They simply calculated where each target would be and put bullets in that exact location. The Wraith attack craft began dying by the hundreds, then thousands. Explosive rounds tore through biological armor that had evolved to resist energy weapons but had never encountered solid projectiles moving at hypersonic speeds. The swarm tried to adapt, changing course and spreading out. But the human computers adapted faster, recalculating firing solutions in real time. For every attack craft that made it through the defensive fire, 10 more died before reaching their targets. On Valorum Prime, Mirith watched in disbelief as the sensor readings updated. "They're stopping them," she whispered. "All of them. How is this possible?" Teclon floated beside her, studying the data with scientific fascination. "Their targeting accuracy is beyond anything in our database. They're achieving over 98% hit rates against fast-moving targets. And their weapons? Those aren't energy-based. They're using kinetic projectiles. Simple physics, but applied with incredible precision." The first wave of the swarm assault lasted 8 minutes. When it ended, over 12,000 Wraith attack craft had been destroyed. The remaining few thousand retreated back toward the capital ships, their organic programming unable to comprehend what had just happened. In all their evolutionary history, the swarm had never encountered a defense that could stop them completely. The Wraith capital ships paused, their hive intelligence processing this unexpected resistance. Then they did something that surprised even Sarah. They adapted. Evolution in real time, the 17 Wraith vessels split into 2 groups. 9 ships moved to encircle the human fleet while 8 began a direct assault on Valorum Prime itself. They were trying to force the humans to divide their forces to protect the planet while fighting the surrounding vessels. It was smarter tactics than the Valorum had ever seen from the Wraiths. "They're learning," Sarah said quietly. "Park, take the Indomitable and 12 ships to intercept the group heading for the planet. I'll take the remaining 19 and deal with the encirclement." "Admiral, that puts you outnumbered 9-19, Park objected. "The mathematics doesn't work." Sarah smiled grimly. "Commander, the mathematics never work for humanity. We wouldn't be here if we only fought when the odds were good. You have your orders." The human fleet split with practiced precision. Sarah's group moved to engage the 9 Wraith capital ships attempting the encirclement, while Park's formation accelerated to intercept the 8 vessels diving toward Valorum Prime. The Wraith ships opened fire first. Their weapons unleashed concentrated beams of dark energy that could tear through conventional shields like paper. But human ships didn't rely on energy shields. Their defense came from layered composite armor, designed to disperse and absorb multiple types of attacks. The dark energy weapons scored the Indomitable's hull, burning through the outer layer but failing to penetrate the inner armor. "Damage report," Park called out. "Outer hull compromised on decks 7 through 9. No penetration. Casualties 0. Park allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Human engineering had prepared for energy weapons based on theoretical models. Those models had been accurate. "All ships, return fire. Target their weapon emplacements. Railgun batteries, full salvo." The human ships unleashed their primary weapons. Railguns accelerated tungsten projectiles to velocities that turned them into relativistic weapons. When those projectiles struck the Wraith ships, physics took over in spectacular fashion. The power of physics. The first Wraith capital ship to take a direct hit from a railgun simply stopped moving. The kinetic impact transferred so much energy that the biological hull couldn't absorb it. Internal structures ruptured. Organic systems failed. The massive vessel began to break apart, its regeneration capabilities overwhelmed by catastrophic damage. Direct hit on Target 7, the weapons officer reported. Target is breaking apart. No signs of recovery. Park watched 3 more Wraith ships take hits in rapid succession. Concentrate fire, don't give them time to regenerate, we need to take them down fast. Meanwhile, Sarah's group was engaged in a deadly dance with the 9 Wraith vessels trying to surround them. The alien ships were massive and powerful, but they moved like creatures that had never faced an equal opponent. They expected their prey to flee or cower. Instead, the human ships accelerated directly toward them. "Ma'am, we're heading straight into their formation," her tactical officer said nervously. "Exactly," Sarah replied. "They're trying to surround us because they think we'll retreat. Instead, we're going through them. All ships execute pattern Gamma 7. Full burn." The human vessels surged forward, their engines pushing them to accelerations that would crush most organic beings. Human crews in reinforced chairs endured, forces that came naturally to a species that evolved in Earth's heavy gravity. They punched through the Wraith formation, firing at point-blank range as they passed. Railgun rounds tore through Wraith hulls. Missiles found weak points in biological armor, and the human ships emerged on the other side of the formation intact. The Wraith ships tried to turn and pursue, but their massive size made them slow to change course. By the time they reoriented, the human fleet had already circled around for another attack run. Ground zero, while the naval battle raged in orbit, another crisis was developing on Valorum Prime itself. 3 Wraith capital ships had broken through Park's defensive line and entered the planet's atmosphere. They were heading for the largest population centers, preparing to begin harvesting operations. On the surface, panic spread through the underwater cities. The Wraiths had never been stopped once they reached a planet. Evacuation shelters that were designed to protect against orbital bombardment wouldn't hold against direct assault. The civilians prepared for the end. Then something unexpected happened. Human drop pods began falling from orbit like meteorites. They hit the ocean surface at terminal velocity, their armored shells designed to handle the impact. Inside each pod were 12 human Marines, fully equipped for combat in hostile environments. Sergeant Marcus Webb felt his stomach drop as his pod hit the water. The impact would have killed an unprotected human, but their armor absorbed most of the force. Around him, his squad was already checking their weapons. "Sound off," Webb ordered. 11 voices confirmed they were ready. "Good. Intelligence says we've got civilians trapped in a shelter complex 2 clicks north. There's a Wraith harvester heading for the same location. Our job is to get the civilians out and delay that harvester until the Navy can provide fire support." "Delay a ship that's 3 kilometers long?" Private Chen asked. "How exactly do we do that, Sarge?" Webb checked his rifle, a weapon designed to fire underwater using specialized ammunition. "We're humans, Chen. We figure it out as we go." The squad swam through the alien ocean, their armor providing propulsion and oxygen. The water pressure at this depth would crush an unprotected human. But their suits were built for environments far more hostile than this. Earth's deepest trenches had prepared human engineers for any aquatic challenge. They reached the shelter complex just as the Wraith harvester arrived. The alien vessel was smaller than the capital ships, but still massive. A biological nightmare of tentacles and cutting tools designed to strip a city clean in hours. It was already beginning its work, tearing into the shelter's outer walls. Inside, 3,000 Valorum civilians waited for death. "Chen, Park, set up the heavy weapons," Webb ordered. "Everyone else, we're going to punch a hole in that thing's hull and get its attention. Maybe it'll be stupid enough to chase us instead of finishing the shelter." The Marines opened fire with everything they had. Explosive rounds designed for anti-vehicle combat tore into the harvester's biological armor. It wasn't enough to seriously damage the massive creature ship, but it was enough to hurt it. The harvester paused its assault on the shelter and turned toward this new threat. "Good," Webb thought. "Now we just need to stay alive long enough for the cavalry to arrive." Turning point in orbit, the battle had reached a critical moment. Park's group had destroyed 5 of the 8 Wraith capital ships heading for the planet. But the remaining 3 were proving difficult. They'd adapted their tactics, coordinating their attacks and using their dark energy weapons more effectively. The Indomitable had taken significant damage, her outer armor compromised in multiple locations. "Commander, we can't sustain this much longer," the damage control officer reported. "We need to end this fast." Park studied the tactical display. The 3 remaining Wraith ships were staying close together, using overlapping fields of fire to protect each other. Traditional tactics wouldn't work, but humans hadn't gotten this far by following traditional tactics. "Load nuclear-tipped missiles," Park ordered. "Full spread, all tubes." His executive officer looked shocked. "Sir, we're in planetary orbit. The radiation from nuclear detonations could affect the surface. The Valorum are aquatic and deep underwater," Park replied. "The ocean will shield them from most of the radiation. And if we don't stop these ships now, there won't be any Valorum left to worry about." The missiles launched, 12 of them, each carrying a 5-megaton warhead. The Wraith ships tried to intercept them with their attack craft, but the human point defense cleared a path. The missiles detonated simultaneously, creating 3 miniature suns in low orbit. When the light faded, all 3 Wraith capital ships were dead, their biological hulls burned away by nuclear fire. Park allowed himself a moment of relief before opening a channel to Sarah's group. "Admiral Park reporting. All targets in my sector neutralized. Moving to support your position." Sarah's voice came back strained but victorious. "Negative, Commander. We've got it under control here. I need you to provide close air support for ground teams. We've got Marines engaged with Wraith forces on the surface." The final stand on Valorum Prime, Sergeant Webb's squad was running out of options. They'd successfully drawn the Wraith Harvester away from the civilian shelter, but now it was hunting them through the underwater city. The massive creature ship could navigate the flooded streets with disturbing agility, its tentacles tearing through buildings as it pursued them. "Sarge, we're almost out of ammunition," Private Chen reported. "And that thing isn't even slowing down." Webb's mind raced. They needed to buy more time, but with what? Then he noticed the city's power distribution center ahead, a massive facility that generated energy for the entire region. It was still operational, its automated systems continuing to function despite the evacuation. "Everyone follow me," Webb ordered, leading his squad into the power center. The Wraith Harvester crashed through the entrance behind them, its tentacles reaching for the fleeing humans. Webb planted explosive charges on the main reactor controls as his squad provided covering fire. "This is going to get messy," he said over the squad channel. "When I blow these charges, the reactor is going to overload. We'll have about 30 seconds to get clear before this whole place goes up." 30 seconds to swim how far? Chen asked. "As far as we can," Webb replied. He triggered the charges and ran. The power center exploded with a force that registered on orbital sensors. The Wraith Harvester, caught in the middle of the blast, was torn apart by the release of energy. The explosion created a shockwave that swept through the underwater city, but the civilian shelters held. Webb's squad surfaced in a flooded plaza, their armor damaged but intact. "Sound off," Webb gasped. All 11 voices responded. They'd survived. Above them, through the water, they could see explosions in space as the orbital battle reached its conclusion. Victory and Understanding, Sarah's fleet, had systematically destroyed all 9 Wraith capital ships in their sector. The aliens' biological regeneration, their dark energy weapons, their millennia of successful conquest. None of it mattered against human tactics and human weapons. The battle lasted 3 hours from start to finish. When it ended, all 17 Wraith capital ships were destroyed. The human fleet had suffered damage to 23 vessels but 0 casualties. Not a single human life had been lost. It was a victory so complete that Counselor Mirith couldn't process it at first. "They won," she whispered, watching the tactical display. "They actually won." Teclon's bioluminescence pulsed with a mixture of awe and fear. "Counselor, I've been analyzing the human combat data. Their tactics, their weapons, their coordination. These beings are natural-born warriors. Everything about them is designed for warfare." "No," Mirith said slowly, understanding beginning to dawn. "Everything about them is designed for survival. There's a difference." She opened a channel to the Indomitable. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the display, looking tired but satisfied. "Counselor Mirath, I'm pleased to report that Valorum Prime is secure. The Wraith threat has been eliminated." "Admiral, I don't know how to thank you," Mirith said, her voice breaking with emotion. You saved our entire civilization. You came across the galaxy to fight for people you'd never met. Why? Sarah was quiet for a moment. On Earth we have a saying, "Evil triumphs when good people do nothing." The Wraiths were evil. You needed help. We could provide that help. The mathematics was really very simple. But the risk, Mirith protested. You could have all died. Your entire fleet, your people might never have seen you again. Sarah smiled, and for the first time Mirith saw not a predator, but someone who understood what it meant to care about others. Counselor, humanity spent millions of years learning a very important lesson. We survive not because we're the strongest or the fastest. We survive because we work together. Because we protect each other. Because when someone asks for help, we answer. She gestured to her bridge crew. Every person on these ships volunteered for this mission. We all understood the risks, and we all agreed that saving your civilization was worth those risks. A new beginning. In the days that followed, Human and Valorum worked together to repair the damage from the battle. Human engineers helped rebuild the underwater cities while Valorum scientists studied the wreckage of the Wraith ships, trying to understand the enemy that had plagued the galaxy for so long. Sergeant Webb and his squad were treated as heroes by the Valorum civilians they'd saved. The Marines were uncomfortable with the attention, insisting they'd just been doing their jobs. But the Valorum understood that these humans had risked their lives for strangers, and that meant everything. Counselor Mirith met with Admiral Chen one final time before the human fleet prepared to depart. Will you stay? Mirith asked. Help us rebuild? We could learn so much from each other. Sarah shook her head gently. We need to return to Earth and report what we've found. But this isn't goodbye, Counselor. Humanity is now aware that we're not alone in the universe, and we've learned that there are species worth protecting. She paused. We'll establish formal diplomatic relations. We'll share technology, and if the Wraiths ever return or if any other threat appears, you can count on Earth to answer your call. Mirith's bioluminescence pulsed with gratitude. The galaxy will want to know about your species. About humans in your incredible world. What should we tell them? Sarah thought about Earth, about the violent, beautiful planet that had forged humanity into what they were. She thought about the struggles and triumphs, the wars and peace, the endless drive to survive and thrive against all odds. Tell them the truth, Sarah said finally. Tell them that humans come from a death world. Tell them we've spent our entire existence fighting to survive. Tell them we're warriors when we need to be, and protectors when others need us. Tell them that when humanity makes a promise, we keep it. The human fleet departed Valorum space 3 days later, leaving behind construction drones and a communication relay that would allow instant contact between Earth and Valorum Prime. As the Indomitable prepared for the faster-than-light jump that would take them home, Sarah stood on the bridge and looked at the blue planet they'd saved. Admiral, all ships report ready for jump, Lieutenant Park said. Course laid in for Earth, Sarah nodded. Take us home, Commander. We've got a lot to tell everyone. The fleet jumped, vanishing in bursts of exotic radiation. Behind them, Valorum Prime began the long process of rebuilding. But now they rebuilt with hope. They'd sent a distress call into the darkness, and humanity had answered. Epilogue news of the Valorum rescue spread across Earth like wildfire. Humanity had made first contact, fought their first interstellar war, and won decisively. But the victory celebrations were tempered by a new understanding. They were no longer alone in the universe, and the galaxy was more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The United Earth Space Command began a massive expansion program. More ships, more training, more preparation for whatever challenges might come next, because now they knew the truth. Earth was a death world. Humanity were Deathworlders, and in a galaxy full of species that had evolved on gentle worlds with kind environments that made humans something unique. When threats emerged, when civilizations faced extinction, when the darkness closed in and hope seemed lost, there would be one species that would answer the call, not because they sought glory or power, but because it was the right thing to do. Because humans understood what it meant to face extinction and refused to accept it. Counselor Mirith would later write in her historical account of the Valorum crisis. We sent a message into the void expecting nothing. Instead, we found humanity. We learned that the universe contains not just predators and prey, but protectors, beings who will cross the galaxy to defend strangers, who will risk everything for people they've never met, who understand that civilization means standing together against the darkness. The Wraiths taught us to fear. Humanity taught us to hope. and that makes all the difference. In the vastness of space, the human fleet returned to Earth, their mission complete. But this was just the beginning. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy, and the galaxy would never be the same. Because now everyone knew, when you send a distress call into the darkness, when you face extinction and need a miracle, there's a species that will answer. A species from a death world called Earth. And they don't know how to quit.